This article originally appeared on my blog over here, Adventures on the Ground Floor. In the summer of 2012, I was down the pub after an Android meetup, talking to this guy who reckoned OUYA was a big deal. This was 2 or 3 weeks into their Kickstarter campaign, and whilst I read about it, it had kind of passed me by up to that point. Next day, I gave it a lot of thought, properly checked out their Kickstarter campaign, and decided to give it a shot. Back then, I'd already been an indie game developer for over a year, struggling away making a game for Android in my own home, built of an openGL engine. Yes, you may laugh, but I did effectively come straight out of university to do this, driven by the narrative that the industry had come round full cycle, back once again to the days of bedroom coders. The App Store meant anyone could make $1 million with the right game. Recently though, that faith had started to be tested. Going to Android conventions, talking with a lot of people, seeing the statistics, I was just a drop in the App Store ocean. OUYA was a chance to get in on the ground floor with a new platform, and if it took off, ride that rocket. It was a calculated risk for sure, as people at the time kept reminding me, a sort of all-or-nothing strategy, but better than the App Store lottery. Plus my family, especially my dad, were on my back about how I wasted over a year of my life doing the indie thing without success, and how I should quit and get a real job, which I have still not done. OUYA was the last chance. If it did not work out, then I could at least say I did given it my best shot and move with my head high. I backed at the $700 dev kit level, ditched the previous game I was working on after 80 maths, though that's a story for another day, and decided to make a new game just for the OUYA. I polished up my existing Android-based engine, and set about crafting this new project. By New Year 2013, everything had gone a bit quiet. The buzz and hype had dissipated and the OUYA was foremost out of sight and out of mind. This was slightly alarming. Since the dev kits were due to be delivered imminently, I decided to throw myself into changing that. I joined Twitter, started following and messaging anyone and everyone I could find about OUYA. Over a couple of months, I organized 2 meetups in London, with over 50 people at each one, with developers bringing along their little see-through plastic boxes, talking about and demoing their games. I'd never done anything like it before, and it was hugely exciting and rewarding to see all the hard work come together and be a success. In fact, I organized a 3rd meetup in Leeds, but only a handful of people turned up. It was an exhausting experience, trying to drum up support, both online and through repeatedly driving around an unfamiliar Leeds city centre late at night, going to meetups, finding a venue and so on. I changed tack, and started instead going to conventions and shows. I demoed my in-development game at an anime convention. At the time, I was the only indie there, in amongst all the comic book and t-shirt stores, with my basic store and homemade setup, right opposite the shiny professionally constructed booths of Nintendo and Crytek. I went to the enormous Gadget show convention, and was picked up by one of the researchers for the TV show of the same name. I went to their studios, told them all about it, and my OUYA got on TV. I walked into a branch of the retailer, GAME. After talking to them via Twitter, and arranged for myself and several other indie developers to demo their games in Stor, the OUYA was my secret weapon. I used it to open doors and squeeze every opportunity I could from it, and it was a thrill to be able to do that, to take something and run with it. Since the small startup that was OUYA Incorporated was based in the United States, with almost no presence in the United Kingdom whatsoever. I was even invited to do a couple of weeks contract work for OUYA, helping squash bugs in the time before the first wave of consoles were released to general backers. But I did not really work in that sort of SCRUM, daily-standups, team environment before. I did just build doing my own thing as an indie, and found myself a bit out of my depth most of the time. There were also a few own goals. I was approached by a company who did hardware benchmarking, and naively agreed to help them get their software running on my dev kit. The results were not exactly cutting edge, and the fallout helped feed into a very negative narrative that surrounded the OUYA at the time. As for my game, I had a very clear, immovable deadline. The OUYA would launch in stores on this date, and missing that would negate the whole point of making an OUYA game, which was to be a launch title on a new platform. I hit that deadline with a few days to spare, something I am still immensely proud of. The hat Awakens. It's hard to pinpoint where the hate for OUYA first started. The internet always has its garden variety trolls who will pick on whatever. But even to this day, people who never even used an OUYA still seem to take a measure of delight in hammering down on it. I think a couple of things in particular did for it. PlayStation 4 was announced with much fanfare. Just a math. So before the OUYA was due to be delivered to the bulk of those who backed it at the reward $100 tier. PS4 was everything that OUYA was not. Big, powerful, shiny and polished. This was the real deal, was what gamers, tired of the aging previous generation, really wanted. More of the same, but faster, better looking, and with all the mark-ons, friends lists, leaderboards, and video sharing, etc. PS4 and later X1's appearances also reignited the age-old console wars, and OUYA was a convenient target to which both sides could be unified in deriding. The other big factor was in part of OUYA's own making. On the Kickstarter page, there was a due date for the console to be delivered. Backers expected their OUYAs to drop through the letterbox on that day.
OUYA.
For whatever operational reasons, took that day to be the day when the first batch of several hundred units would leave the factory and start the long process of winding their way to people's homes. The alternative delay in delivery would have doubtless caused an almighty furore. However, that communication was not handled well at all. OUYA's customer support melted under the pressure of 60,000 people all asking why their OUYA had not arrived. All at the same time, the lack of response that resulted led people to further complain, and so compound be issued, and then shortly take their complaints online to find they were not alone. There were some other factors as well. The bombastic claims about the revolution will be televised probably did more to hinder than help in the long term, feeding the perception of overpromise and under-deliver that turned many off from OUYA. The company, in my opinion, was also not able to separate the messages it sent to the investor community from those it sent to the consumers. OUYA was trying to be a disruptive force and needed to hype itself up to attract investors. But such was the intensity of the spotlight on the company that those interviews on Bloomberg and Forbes aimed at securing further funds would get repeated by gaming sites and thrown into the internet echo chamber. After the debacle with delivering to backers, it was all downhill. The circle of toxic negativity became infectious, spiraling into one big hate fest. Even I was caught up a little by it, spending all day trying to defend the OUYA and reason with people. You pick up on a lot of their grievances a month or two after OUYA's retail launch. I wrote an article entitled, "The Revolution is Dead." In it I argued OUYA had lost the car gamer market, and should pivot towards a market where consumers, of course people just read the first half, or even just the title, and I think a number of people at OUYA previously got on quite well, without hurt, and much betrayed by the article. I managed to undo an awful lot of that goodwill that I worked so hard and enthusiastically to build up. The lean startup. I am convinced OUYA were following the lean startup by the book. Release a minimum viable product, MVP, find a product market fit, and build from there. It failed for 3 reasons.
1.